In 2015, for example, Google had to apologize after its image recognition app mistakenly labeled African Americans as gorillas.
You won't believe what AI really thinks about black people.
To generate images of workers in a high-paid profession like a lawyer, all of the images I'm getting in this instance are of white people. Now, if I prompt it to generate images of workers in a low-paid profession like a fast food worker, all of the images I'm getting in this instance are of black people. But there could be a bias.
AI isn't playing fair for everyone. Systemic racism is baked into the code. It's not a glitch, it's a pattern. Racism is showing up everywhere, even in tools you use every day, like ChatGPT. That's because AI doesn't create bias out of thin air. It learns from our world. And if our world is broken, AI just makes it worse. Let's get straight to the point and start with a major issue: facial recognition systems. A report from the National Institute of Standards and Technology found that these systems wrongly identify black and Asian faces up to 100 times more often than white faces. This is an unfair problem that impacts many people's lives.
Because you are under arrest.
This is Robert Williams. 3 years.
In 2020, Robert Williams, a black man from Detroit, was wrongly arrested outside his home for a crime he didn't commit. This mistake happened because of artificial intelligence and white officers. Williams was accused of stealing expensive watches from a Chinola store based on a match made by facial recognition technology. The AI system identified him as the suspect, even though the real thief, who was also black, looked very different. Williams pointed out the mistake right away, but the officers said their software had identified him as the criminal. Even though he protested, he was still arrested and taken to jail. He was held for 30 hours before the officers admitted their mistake and let him go. This is just one example of how AI seems to fail people of color. Williams isn't the only black person who has been wrongly affected by this. Similarly, in 2022, 28-year-old Randall Karen Reed, a black man from Georgia, was wrongly arrested because of another mistake made by facial recognition technology. While driving to his mother's home near Atlanta, Reed was pulled over and told there were warrants for his arrest from Jefferson and East Baton Rouge parishes in Louisiana, places he had never been. The warrants accused him of using stolen credit cards to buy about $15,000 worth of designer purses. This mix-up led to Reed being held in jail for nearly a week. His family hired a lawyer who showed photos and videos proving that Reed looked very different from the person in the surveillance footage. Despite this evidence, Reed was kept in jail for 6 days before the warrants were canceled. Sadly, there are many other cases like this, and African Americans are more likely to be wrongly affected by this technology than white people. There are many cases like this. So why does AI keep failing to identify black people? The problem is built-in biases in AI systems. These systems are trained on incomplete or biased data, often without input from diverse groups. When mostly white teams develop AI, the systems tend to be flawed and biased. Police AI, like predictive policing algorithms, often make racial inequalities worse. These tools use historical crime data, which is biased because law enforcement has targeted black and minority communities more. As a result, the algorithms unfairly label these areas as high crime, leading to more policing. A ProPublica report found that risk assessment algorithms in the criminal justice system were twice as likely to label black defendants as high risk, even when white defendants were more likely to reoffend. Another study showed that predictive policing systems reinforce bias, flagging over-policed areas for more surveillance even without increased crime. These are just a few examples of biased AI harming black individuals. This bias extends beyond law enforcement and affects AI image generators, which also rely on flawed datasets.
Technology to generate a photo of a person receiving social services, it generated only non-white and primarily darker-skinned people. Results for a productive person, meanwhile, were uniformly male, majority white, and dressed in suits for corporate jobs. Stable diffusion drew negative attention when requests for a Latina produced images of women in suggestive poses wearing little to no clothing.
AI image generation often creates stereotypical images. A study found that roles with authority, prestige, and wealth were mostly shown by white males, while service jobs were linked to Black or Latino individuals. Developers have promised to fix this, but progress has been slow. Even updates to popular AI models haven't fully solved these biases. MIT Media Lab found that while AI systems improved at recognizing diversity, they still reinforced racial stereotypes in professions. Moving on, this problem also appears in language processing, with studies showing that large models like GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 associate African American English with negative stereotypes. AI models often suggest that speakers of African American English get lower status jobs, face criminal charges, and receive harsher sentences. While AI is meant to make tasks faster, it can spread harmful biases. These biases can happen either intentionally or because creators didn't consider their impact. It doesn't stop here. AI bias also affects financial systems and impacts race and gender. In 2019, the Wall Street Journal found that Apple's credit card algorithm gave women lower credit limits than men, even if their financial profiles were the same. This came to light when tech entrepreneur David Homme Hansen revealed his wife was offered a credit limit 20 times lower than his. Many others had similar experiences. This happens because the algorithms use financial data that has gender and racial biases. A study by the Brookings Institution found these algorithms put women and minorities at a disadvantage. This AI problem is similar to past discrimination, like redlining, which kept Black families from getting loans. In 2021, Mary Lewis, a Black woman, was denied an apartment in Massachusetts because of a low AI-generated tenant score. The algorithm ignored her housing voucher and relied too much on credit info, hurting low-income and minority applicants. This led to a lawsuit and a $2.2 million settlement. In 2024, a judge allowed a class action lawsuit against Workday, a company that uses AI to help employers hire. The lawsuit says the software unfairly discriminates against Black, older, and disabled candidates, favoring others even when applicants are equally qualified. Moving on, healthcare AI systems have also shown bias. A 2019 study found that an algorithm used by hospitals to decide who needs care most often gave Black patients lower priority than white patients, even if their health was the same. This happened because the algorithm used spending history to decide care needs, but Black patients spent less on healthcare because of unfair treatment and fewer resources, not because they were healthier. For example, a Black patient with diabetes or heart disease might get less care than a white patient with the same conditions, just because of this mistaken data. Reports show that healthcare AI can make inequalities worse if it's based on biased data from the past. The examples we've discussed today are upsetting, but sadly, they're not new. They're just another form of racism that has been around for years. The truth is, AI systems are only as biased as the teams and data that create them. A McKinsey & Company report found that Black professionals make up only about 8% of the workforce in U.S. tech companies. Without diverse perspectives, AI tools can fail to serve everyone equally. AI models learn from large datasets, And when those sets miss certain groups, the models inherit those biases. For example, MIT Media Lab found that facial recognition systems were 34% less accurate at identifying darker-skinned women than lighter-skinned men due to biased data. When AI systems harm marginalized groups, they hurt trust. A Pew Research Center survey showed that Black Americans are less likely to trust AI. And after hearing all of this, it's easy to see why. AI still struggles to make everyone feel safe and included. While many developers are working to fix these problems, sometimes their efforts can miss the mark. The big question now is, how can we make sure AI treats people of color fairly and helps everyone feel safe using it? One of the best ways to improve AI is by having more diverse voices in the tech industry. Programs like Google's AI for Social Good and partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities aim to include more diversity in AI development. By making STEM education more accessible and supporting minority-led startups, we can create more inclusive AI systems that benefit everyone. Involving end users in the design process, called participatory design, can help catch biases early. Governments and organizations should also enforce rules like the EU's General Data Protection Regulation, which promotes transparency in algorithms to reduce bias. In the US, the Algorithmic Accountability Act is trying to tackle similar issues, but it still needs more action. AI is changing the world, but its benefits won't be shared equally unless we fix its flaws. The issues we've seen with biased facial recognition, financial systems, and healthcare algorithms show how urgent it is to act. To build fair AI, we need everyone's involvement, both as users and creators. The power of AI depends on how we use it. If we increase diversity in AI development, train systems on inclusive data, and hold AI accountable, we can create a future where AI helps everyone, not just some. If this video opened your eyes to the realities of AI bias, don't stop here. Share it, discuss it, and let's keep this conversation going. Because change starts with awareness, and it starts with us. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our future content. Let's build a better, fairer future together. See you in the next one.